Hey, you guys, we are tuning in on a late evening. You're listening to the Mick and Pat Show.
Yeah, what's up? I'm Mick.
And I'm Pat. And if you are a first-time listener, welcome. If you've listened to our previous episode, we appreciate it. And we're glad that you are joining us again. And I think that tonight there is little to no agenda, so we are going to speak our mind and speak some truth.
Yeah. Also, being our second episode, we're getting some really helpful critiques and reviews from those of you who are kind of listening and helping make this a better show, and more entertaining and more enjoyable show for all of our kin, which, by the way, kin is what we're thinking about calling the people who listen to this podcast, because we want to denote a term that is encompassing to everyone and anyone, no matter their race or creed or religion or philosophy, politics, whatever. We want everyone to feel like they got a place at this table. Mm-hmm. And we felt like kin was a really good word for that. Especially just because that there's a lot of uses of it to be, whether, you could use kin or kinfolk, or I don't know, there's quite a different ways of using it. I want to say there's a verb for it, but that's what we're going to roll with for now. Might roll back on that if someone educates us on perhaps how kin is not PC or something like that, and suggest a better term. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and we appreciate all our kin out there helping us make this a better show for you, and something that we enjoy doing. We still want it to be like a humble, down to earth, not overproduced thing. We still want to feel like we're all sitting around a table. But also, we're working on our intros, our intro music, especially for the main show. Pat, I'm gonna throw this out here. Perhaps if you are a musician that is working on creating that nice, easy listening, long form study and kind of coffee shop vibe tunes, I'm thinking like lo-fi hip hop, maybe something remix lyrics, whatever it may be. We're looking to find the right vibe as an intro for this, and it'd be free publicity for you. If people look up what's the intro song to the Mick and Pat Show, we'd be happy to have it right up there on our website. As soon as you show up to the page, give a credit there. We are, as a disclaimer, we are not offering to pay you any royalties. The payment is the free advertisement you get as being the intro to every episode.
I'll give you everything in my pocket,
which is a can of Zyn and lint.
That is
because I think you're wearing sweats.
I'm wearing, as my my little one calls them, my jammies. And so that's what I showed up in tonight. Had a long day at work. I was crawling on my hands and knees all day, and it was time to trade the Carhartts for the jammies and the boots for the slippers. And so I think we had two very different weeks.
Yeah. To your note as well, there's two types of people who wear Carhartt stuff now. It's either people who wear them because they need to keep their elbows and knees from being shredded, or they are females, part of Delta sorority, and are trying to look good for fall pics. Pat here is one of the latter, actually. He is in the Delta. The slogan. Just kidding.
Not a stain or tear on my pants.
Yeah, they just look great. The only stain is the pumpkin spice latte drip that didn't wash out. Anyways, we did have two very different weeks. I just came off of a vacation with my wife for our 1-year anniversary. We went on up into northern Michigan to Traverse City. And let me tell you, dude, I thought Michigan was flat and boring. Truth be told, Traverse City, and that stretch from Traverse City through Charlevoix up into Petoskey, Michigan, is perhaps the most beautiful drive I have ever had in America. Like, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I had a hard time keeping my eyes on the road because to my left would be just beautiful golden or green orchards of fruit trees or crops with these beautiful farmhouses and plenty of trees around. It wasn't just flat and barren. And just 100 feet to my right was a cliff or a steep beach that would turn into Lake Michigan. And if you own a house there, whether it's a farm property or not, man, you're just a hop, skip, and a jump from being able to go into the lake and hang out. And it was, without a doubt, the most gorgeous scenery I've ever seen outside of Scandinavia. Like, it made me want to leave Colorado. It made me want to pick up and move out of Colorado, Pat. I kid you not.
I had a similar experience. I headed north for a lake trip a few weeks ago, and Colorado is beautiful, no doubt. But it's funny how when you get to some other places, you realize how arid where we live actually is in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, the size of the trees, the evergreen trees, and all these things that are just like huge. Also, the size of the deer and everything. Like as you move north, are just larger and larger.
Yeah.
I've never been where you were at, but I've had friends who've done like that same drive and said almost the exact same thing about just the being on the drive and just enjoying the whole drive because you're just looking out the window the whole time.
Yeah, dude. Hey, I'm gonna plug someone right now. Don't know who you are. Don't know your name. Hopefully you're kin, though. Hopefully you're a listener. We saw a house, a property for sale, because as soon as we did that drive, my wife and I, we got to the hotel and we pulled up Zillow immediately, like without hesitation. And there was this property listed. It was a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home with about 5 acres. And it was kind of a wonky acre lot, right? Like it wasn't like a perfect square or anything like that. But it had a finished, built out like loft suite above the garage. And it was sitting on farmland, but it had trees around the edge of the property. So it had this really, kind of nice weather buffer. It was about a 1/4 mile from Lake Michigan. I'm talking like walking distance, right? And it had a renovated schoolhouse, one of the original schoolhouses for Charlevoix, like where they had, you were 8 and 18, and well, let's be real. Back in the day, if you were 18, you weren't in the schoolhouse. You started working at the mill at like 13. But it was like one of those schoolhouses where everybody, no matter your age, met in the same room and learned math that day.
Yep.
And it's renovated to be like an Airbnb or mother-in-law suite.
Oh, wow.
And it's freaking beautiful, man. Like this property is gorgeous. If that's your property and you're selling it, I'm sorry you're selling it. I really want to buy it from you.
What was the price tag on it?
So that property, 5 acres, 4 bedrooms, 3-bathroom home with a full furnished schoolhouse on property that had its own bedroom and bath, right? What do you think it was? I'll tell you, it's a 1/4 mile from Lake Michigan on beautiful land. What do you think it was?
All here
in Colorado.
Here that's 1.5 easy.
I think
most likely 2 million. I'm hoping to hear sub 650 or right in there.
You'd be right. It would be sub 650.
Yeah.
It was I think if I remember right, it was 459.
Yep.
And I almost walked to the bank to take out a loan while we were there in Traverse City. Like I was like, this is super financially irresponsible, but I have to live there. I have to live on this property, man.
No doubt.
But yeah, it was a gorgeous trip. We met a lot of good folk. Shout out to North Peak Brewery. You have the best food that I had from any of the bars or breweries in Traverse City. It's very similar to where we live, Pat. A lot of breweries, ton of breweries. Not all of them phenomenal, I would say. Like some of them are still, I think, coming into themselves. You know, they're young, less than like 10 years old. But like some of these other ones, like North Peak, they know what they're doing with the beer. They know what their people like, and they know how to do really good, like German beer food. Right. I had like a pork loin there. My wife had well, gosh, I can't remember what she had. She had something really good. It was like a pork schnitzel or something like that, right? Phenomenal. Absolutely the best. It was expensive. I mean, you know, it was maybe not expensive, but it was like $20 a plate. But it was incredible food. Really good beer. I recommend their Tropical Diabolical for anyone in Michigan who's able to get that beer. But it's a very similar feeling to like a small college town. There is a small college there, but it's a very like quiet at night. Not a lot of lights on in houses and apartments and stuff at night, but there's still a group walking around, going to bars, checking things out. And there is just you know, you can't beat the views and the things to do. Like there's always something to do, sights to see. We went to this awesome tour where they give you a tour of the state hospital, which was closed down back in the 80s during the Reagan administration.
It's like a hospital for
it was a hospital for the insane.
Yeah.
Not the criminally insane,
right,
but the insane.
Yeah.
And they did a tour of it, which was awesome. They have like buildings that are renovated to look exactly like they did when it was a hospital. But the crazy thing, bro, I kid you not, Pat, like this is exactly like if you go there, you'll see this. The like second and third level of the hospital, because it's a bunch of different buildings. It's like a campus, right? It's like a whole campus where there's like where the nurses would live, the doctors would live, the patients would live, the main office, the cafeteria, things like that, right? The like second and third floors are just like super expensive, really nice apartments and condos, renovated and like look beautiful. They're modern with like AC and heating, but they have like this style that's very reminiscent of like when it was built in the 1800s. And then the bottom floor, like the basement level, where there's like this nice like limestone brick that's very original to like the way it was and reminiscent of like how like the infrastructure was back in the day with the lighting and all that, is these super cute like aesthetic restaurants and shops. And Red Spire, by the way, I'm just shouting out things. Red Spire, delicious breakfast. You had, I will say this without a doubt, you had the best Eggs Benedict in Traverse City of the three I had while I was there. And Red Spire, everybody, if you get a chance, go to Red Spire, get their soup. I had a potato chowder, and then the Eggs Benedict was just baller. But yeah, dude, it was crazy because it was a cool tour. The lady who did the tour, her dad worked there, so she had like a lot of firsthand experience. Had a lot of cool stories about the patients. Took us to like the part where there was like the dangerous patients, and it's like a building that hasn't been renovated yet, so it's all sketchy and run down and kind of spooky, and there's spray paint and writing on the walls. But it really, like, you know, it was a good place. Like, it was one of those asylums, hospitals that actually helped a lot of people. Wasn't many instances of like abuse for the patients, and it wasn't for the criminally insane, so you didn't have like Alfred Hitchcock there like eating people's faces. Yeah. Sorry, not Alfred Hitchcock, that was the director. Who's the dude who from Silence of the Lambs?
Anthony Hopkins.
As
Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
For some reason, all those names become Alfred Hitchcock in my head.
Oh yeah. Hey, he scared the pee out of me as a young child.
Yeah, when he like goes.
Oh yeah, but Alfred Hitchcock also, like, I remember the first time I watched
The Birds.
Psycho.
Oh, Psycho, yeah.
It's funny because the images on screen, I'd seen stuff that was way scarier. Just like with modern special effects, modern CGI, I'd seen something that was way scarier. but just the way that he holds horror and suspense, it got me. It got me. I couldn't sleep that night.
Yeah, I remember The Birds, bro. And The Birds was like the first movie where there was like a scene of someone missing their eyes, and that messed me up as a kid. I think I was in like 5th grade.
Yeah, I was pretty young too.
My grandpa rented that movie, and I remember my mom chewing him out, Pat. And like, dude, like, I mean, I tried my best not to be scared, but dude, I was straight up scared of birds the next day, dude.
Oh, no kidding. And speaking of in grandpa movie renting, I similarly watched Deliverance with my grandpa.
Oh, dude, that's an awful movie to watch with your grandpa.
Yeah, but so he'd be like, it's like he just remembers, like, you know, it's just a Burt Reynolds movie.
There's Burt Reynolds, and they're out in the woods, and they get in a fight. And
but I like the whole squeal piggy scene is happening, and I look over.
What did your grandpa do?
My grandpa is notorious for the nap. You know, so
he's
just over there.
He's out.
He's asleep
while you're watching a man be raped.
Yeah, and so it was pretty horrible, the whole thing.
Did you even know what sex was? Like, did you really know? You knew sex was a thing, but did you know what it was?
At this point in my life, I knew what was happening to that man.
Oh God, do you think that makes it worse or better? Smoke break.
Smoke break.
Hey, Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you can put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations, complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, 0 fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution.
That's like a trick question. I think that's like
because you enjoy it more.
Yeah, it's like
you sick freak, you degenerate.
It's like, do your parents know you're gay?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you answer that one? I don't know.
Well, nowadays it's yes. The answer is yes.
Yes, I know. But I think I mean it's like I knew it was happening to that poor fella, and it was pretty early on in my. I mean, I think I was like 12 or 13, so I just hadn't hadn't seen a lot of like whatever, even like scary movies. And like, do you like horror movies?
I love horror movies,
really?
Dude. Yeah, I love them.
Do you like
to a fault?
See, I love. I know this sounds so jacked up. Like, I love Saw,
the first one.
Well, right, or like, and I love in that. Love is even such a weird word for this.
I enjoyed the second one. They started going downhill fast.
Right. I don't like paranormal horror movies.
Like Paranormal Activity?
Well, that specifically, stuff like that. But like, here's the deal. Like,
like The Conjuring?
Like, no. Yeah, like I'm not doing that stuff. Like, I'll watch a guy with a chainsaw who like lost it, or like, a vet cracks and he's like,
Bro,
doing his thing.
Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface is a real story.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I can watch that, but I don't do The Exorcist. I don't do the
Really?
No.
Damn, see, because I like that stuff the most. That stuff scares me the most because I believe it. I believe in ghosts and demons, and like that's why I love those movies the most, because it gets me the most heebie-jeebie.
That's why I don't watch them.
And I get that.
That's why I don't.
I respect it. Here's the thing: I really am just not that afraid of serial killers, or like a dude chasing me with a chainsaw or a kitchen knife, because I'm usually strapped, and of the people I know, humble brag moment, and my kin, feel free to humble me. Of the people I know, I'm in the top 1% of competency with a gun. And I say that as someone who is not good at throwing a football, someone who didn't have a dad to teach them how to do a lot of the normal masculine, manly things, right? I've spent
a lot of time with one.
I've spent probably 1,000 hours on 1,000 hours on just one gun in my collection and practicing repetition with it. Not to mention a couple other firearms I probably have about 300 hours to 500 hours with repetition wise. A lot of that was because I had a stipend from a job to practice. From a former employer, they would pay me to buy ammo right each month and go and train and practice, and I did a lot of qualification things. But I just don't get freaked out about any of that stuff, because I'm just dude, if some guy was chasing me with a kitchen knife, the thing is I don't know, maybe it's because the internet spoiled me when I was too young, but you don't die as soon as you get stabbed with a knife,
right?
You don't die the first 15 stabs. You can get stabbed 40 times and live.
Unfortunately, in some cases.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're going to live. But, you got plenty of time to plug a dude with a couple rounds if need be. And I guess that's why that stuff doesn't scare me that much. Also, I've used a chainsaw, and I can't imagine them being really effective against a living person.
Oh, yeah, I agree. For me, it's just I don't like to dive into that creepy stuff, man. I think it's unhealthy, man.
Yeah, no. I think I'm going to level with our kin here for a moment. Mick, me, I tested pretty high on the psychopathy scale. I also tested high on the sociopathy scale.
What's the first word you just said?
Psychopathy?
I don't know what that means.
So it's like the...
Are you just saying it's the adjective? Are you saying psychopath, psychopathy
it's the
in
adjective,
a different way?
It's the adjective, I believe, for psychopath. A psychopath is a noun.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have a certain level on certain tests to be a psychopath. And so there's a psychopathy test that determines how much of a psychopath you are, right? And there comes a point where psychopath and sociopath aren't easy to differentiate,
right?
And it gets to, and here's the problem. I'm a sociology major from college, so I should know the difference. But one of them, I think it's a sociopath. A sociopath knows the difference between right and wrong, but chooses to do wrong because they enjoy it. Psychopath can't, their brain can't comprehend the difference. Their psyche can't comprehend the difference between right and wrong. They don't understand morality.
A true psychopath has to he learns how and when to smile. How and when to react in a situation you don't have, correctly.
Psychopathy is very low empathy. You're not able to empathize. That's why it's you don't feel bad when you are cutting up animals. A sociopath knows when you cut up animals it's wrong, and they enjoy it. And that's empathy is twisted to be something they rather than oh, I feel bad that thing's suffering because I also know what it's like to suffer. That thing's suffering and I enjoy it suffering, and I totally understand it's suffering. Psychopathy is I don't understand that this thing's suffering, and therefore I don't really understand consequence for my actions. Could be totally flipped. I might be totally I might have them flipped backwards, but that's what I remember the description in college being the difference between the two of them. And I know I tested above the average on the test, and the test was the average American scores maybe 5 points on psychopath out of 60, and 5 points out of 60 on sociopath. And I tested net total of 30. So I know that's a, I'm not, you have to test I think it's in the 50s to be clinically diagnosed. Cause usually they say if you're above 10, but less than 40, it's you probably have some of those thoughts and you probably enjoy some things that like most people don't enjoy, but you're not going to like act on them. And like when I got those results, I was like, damn, bro, like I do enjoy the Saw movies a lot. And it's not that I enjoy watching a dude saw his leg off, but I'm really entertained by it. Like I'm thrilled. Like I'm like, and I'm gonna like, I know that's really dark, but like I'm straight up thrilled by it.
The here's the definitions as per the Google. What is sociopathy? Sociopathy is another term for antisocial personality disorder. It's a mental health condition where somebody persistently has difficulty engaging appropriately with social norms. It's a quote from a doctor. And then psychopathy is a neuropsychiatric disorder marked by deficient emotional responses, lack of empathy, poor behavior controls, commonly resulting in persistent antisocial deviance and criminal behavior. Yeah, so one's it's always like the psychopathy is more of a like you're some wires crossed.
You can't empathize.
And then like a sociopath, they struggle with that. Engaging with the social norms, and I think that because sociopath it's much more common to run into like a true sociopath than a true psychopath, right?
I don't know. I want to say yes, but I don't know.
Because I think that's like because you can even just be like you just struggle with you the way you engage with like social norms is there's I should say this sociopaths I think are way less likely to be criminals than like when you have like a psychopath. If you're a sociopath, you are less likely to be a criminal than if you're a psychopath. I think is like it's just there's the way that it goes. But
as a sociopath, I agree with you, but I'm curious to see your opinion on why you think that is because I have my own opinion.
Yeah, I think that a sociopath. That can lead you into criminal behavior due to your lack of you lack the ability to get with the program on social norms. Sociopath.
Oh, you think sociopath?
Yeah, sociopath. They have trouble engaging with people on social norms, and so that can drive you to feeling outside of the group, and then that can drive you into probably more and more of like criminal tendencies. Whereas like a sociopath has no empathy. Psychopath. Or a psychopath. Sorry, a psychopath doesn't have empathy, and that's where you get the like, the killing small animals for fun type thing.
Yeah. See, I think sociopath is able to say, while I'm interested in this, whatever this is, I can recognize that it is not acceptable. Right. And therefore, I'm going to refrain from engaging in it, or I'm going to refrain from engaging in it while people can see. Because I can comprehend that this is not acceptable. And like the psychopath, I don't think can comprehend it. Like the psychopath engages in something because they have a desire to engage in interest, and it doesn't matter to them. Well, it's not that it doesn't matter. Because to not matter means you have to like choose to not care. They cannot care if it hurts your feelings. Like they cannot care if it upset you that they just cut open the dog.
Right.
That's crazy, dude. I would never hurt any of my animals. I can't imagine ever harming any of the like animals I had as a kid. But I do know there was a point where I was curious about things, where in learning the world and stuff like that. And I knew in my mind that like there was one time I thought my cat, I had a cat as a kid. I remember being like 3 or 4, early memory, right? And I locked my cat in the bathroom because I thought that it might be able to get out. Like, and it was in like the I remember specifically wondering if it could think like me. And it was like something where like I was 3 or 4 and I was like, cat seems to be aware. I named my cat Cat. It was my first pet. Named a cat. And it was like a kittenish, right? I just remember thinking like, I think Cat's aware because Cat comes and sits on my lap. Cat purrs when I scratch its head. Cat comes and wakes me up. Like, I remember that cat nibbling on my ear as a kid in bed. And I just thought that cat was making its own decisions, doing what it's want, and had its own preferences. And I just thought, like, dude, cat knows to push on the door handle to open the door. And I just tested it out one day. And I remember closing the door to the bathroom and locking the cat inside. And I remember at the time it was one of my mother's partners it was actually her partner that she was married to, getting really frustrated and having to call her brother to come and take the doorknob off so they could get the cat out of the bathroom. Oh. And I realized then, I was like, oh, okay, so cats can't use doors, and it's not good to lock them in the bathroom for some reason. I don't think it hurt the cat. Cat seemed fine. Cat was just meowing. But I definitely remember, like, going down that route, and, like, I don't think most kids thought like that. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's like that's the same train of thought that, like, a lot of, like, 3 or 4 year olds had of, like, right. I'll lock my pet in their bathroom because I think they are as conscious as me and will get out.
Yeah, that's true. I think that makes me think of a story where my grandpa, he was raised by his grandparents, and when he was a kid, he had some hamsters, and the hamsters had gotten cold outside, and they were basically hibernating, and so he wanted to help them warm up, and so he stuck them on a skillet. And so he was little, but so I think this is all.
This got way darker than locking your pet in a bathroom.
So he sticks them on a skillet, and he burned, like, their feet kind of off, and their nubs would always but their little nubs would get stuck in the shag carpet from then on.
Dude, that is so awful. That makes me feel so bad.
It's pretty bad. See, so that's where, like, I think in some way, like, the
I feel like that's child negligence. Like a kid just doesn't get it.
Right. Well, and, like, he did get that, like, he was wanting to warm them up, so he put them on the skillet.
Jeez, bro.
You know, but I think kids have curiosities, and I think then if you have, like, a mental health disorder, and then you're engaging your curiosities, then it can lead you down into, like, these lifelong bad paths, whereas, like, you had a realization where you went, oh, like, this is, like, not how the cat works, or, like, where my grandpa felt horrible about it, and my grandpa was a big animal lover, and, like, so in the same way, like, there was, like, he didn't do that again. But I think we should probably do a series on mental health and bring in some folks to talk about it. We should take some tests and then we'll disclose them.
I was gonna say, what if it just popped in my head, what if we brought, like, a clinical psychologist on? You know, there's plenty of them where we live. And I was like, I'm just thinking, like, what if we bring them out and we just, like, let them ask us questions, and they're like, all right, well, Pat, you're borderline schizophrenic. Mick, you're 100% a sociopath. I am going to give your name to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation to see if there's any murders you're associated to. You know what I mean? Like, well, I think that'd be interesting. I will say, like, I think the biggest thing that ends up happening at some point in childhood development, you know, nurture nature or something like that, is that it's the enjoyment of the suffering of something else. And I don't know when it happened, right? Like, I can't pinpoint the exact moment. And I feel like it's maybe not that big of a deal, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who relate to this. But there just came a point where I realized I didn't enjoy seeing things hurt or suffer. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just remember I used to be in my grandparents' yard. They lived on, like, a acre and a half of land down near Castle Rock, between Castle Rock and Highlands Ranch. They had this beautiful ranch style home, adobe style, and I would go around and grab grasshoppers and catch the grasshoppers, and I'd drop the grasshoppers onto these red ant colonies. And the red ants would then attack and sting the grasshopper, and I would watch them, and I realized, like, holy smokes, no matter which anthill I put this grasshopper on, they always do the same thing. And the first thing they do is that they always cut off the grasshopper's jump legs. And
Really?
and they carry the legs off while they keep on stinging the grasshopper, and then they start just breaking the grasshopper apart and pulling it down into the anthill. And I remember being fascinated by that. And around the same time, I had a pet praying mantis, and I would just feed it different kinds of bugs that I'd find. And I just was like, bro, this thing is a garbage disposal. It eats anything. And I thought it was cool. I named it, cared about it. I cried when it died, buried it. But there was some point where something happened, you know, whether it was one teacher at school or, you know, it was, I wasn't a Christian at the time. I wasn't a believer, but whether it was a sermon at church, you know, I still went to church with my grandparents on Sundays, or there was something my grandfather or my mom said, something clicked. And I just remember I didn't want to do that anymore. Like, I didn't want to go out, grab bugs and drop them on a hill to watch them die and other bugs eat them. And I don't know what it was, but like that went out the window. And don't get me wrong, like, if I see, like, you know, if I see a YouTube video that's like praying mantis eats a hummingbird, I'm gonna click that video.
Oh yeah.
If I see a video that's like alligator eats a chicken, I'm gonna watch that video, because that's just sensationalism, right? But I'm not fascinated by it like I used to be as a kid, and I don't know what happened or what changed that line. And I really do think like that's like very similar for like a lot of people. Like, a lot of people as a child are developing, and like they might be on the road of developing psychopathic or sociopathic tendencies, and then like something happens and they learn something or they hear something and it touches them in a way where they just decide, like, you know what, I just don't enjoy that anymore. And I'm interested in something else, and I don't know what it was, because I remember I used to kill rabbits in my grandparents' garden with my pellet rifle to keep them from eating our crops and stuff. And I never enjoyed it, but I didn't mind it for a long time. And then there came a day where I really didn't like it anymore. And I just, like, I felt bad one day. And it wasn't because, like, I felt like a rabbit was suffering. Like, they always died really fast. You know, I always made sure to kill them with 1 shot or 2 shots if needed. But then there just came a day where I was like, I have no interest in doing this anymore. And I've never even been like a hunter post that, right? You know, like, I think I've only hunted a couple times after that. And so I don't know. Like, I really don't know when it was. But something happened. Someone said something, and it changed the way I looked at a lot of things.
Yeah, I think it was, you know, it was probably, you know, during early childhood development and adolescent development, you know, we learned to understand the permanence of death. We learned to understand empathy and compassion for other things, and pain, and then it just kind of, you have a different understanding of the world around you. But yeah, I think we should get into some mental health stuff. And I think lots of people think that they're more jacked up than they actually are.
Oh, for sure.
And lots of people are more jacked up than they think they are.
Oh, for sure.
And so
100%.
like, you know, and I think that there's exploring mental health is valuable and important, and there's different crossroads that we take throughout our lives that, like, take us down different paths where you can end up in a place where you never ever thought you would be, just from little small decisions. And we all are responsible for making those decisions as we go, but then there are certain people who also, like, have an upper hand or have been dealt a bad hand at dealing with those things.
Yeah, I mean, I'll level with you too. I don't know if you know this actually yet, but my mom got in a car accident a few years ago, nearly killed her. and it was a teenager who was looking at their phone, pulled out onto a county road highway,
Mm.
when my mom T-boned her. And it was her fault. It wasn't my mom's fault. It was the teenager's fault.
Right.
Went to court, all that stuff. But my mom was brain dead for like 24 hours.
Wow.
And then when she came out of it, slurred speech, didn't know where she was, just had crazy bad pain, headaches. She had like a really bad like stimuli effect where like there was a frequency in music, especially on the radio, that gave her headaches and made her head hurt. And it took years before she was kind of back to like what you would describe as normal, right? Like a functioning adult, able to like have conversations with people, able to watch TV or listen to the radio without having like a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
And the way, I'll be honest, like the way she would have this meltdown, her hands would kind of flutter around her face and she'd just grind her teeth and start crying, and she wouldn't be able to put words to it. And it was very similar to when we would look after and babysit after school this girl with Down syndrome and like severe mental handicaps as well. And she couldn't talk. She had to use like a pad.
Mm-hmm.
And like I remember talking to my mom on the phone after the accident. My grandparents were taking care of her. I didn't know the accident happened until my grandparents told me, and I wanted to talk to my mom, and she couldn't talk to me. It was just like slurred kind of words. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, my mom is not my mom anymore. Yeah. Like she's severely debilitated. And she recovered. Thank God. Praise God. Praise Jesus. And, she's on a disability right now, but she's trying to get her nursing license back. And she's got a driver's license. She's normal pretty much for the most part. She has to take like a hormone regulator. But all this said, a lot of people, I think, are aware of what they have, like my mom. And then there's like other people who I think, like you said, like aren't aware of like their mental stuff that they have going on. And like we kind of joked about it in our brews and reviews with like, hey, if you ever wanted Red Dawn to be real, mm-hmm. That's like, I don't think that's like a lot of people. Like I think that's a certain group of people who like the idea of like defending the homeland, and school's canceled because you got to pick up a gun and you got to be an American and defend. And like I think that's like a mental thing you gain in development or something like that, or you maybe not gain's not the right word, but you have like a disposition towards that. Mm-hmm. And I think like part of that is grounded in like some kind of psychology of like, hey, if you find yourself like wondering in the day where you're working and you're like, would it be so bad if like the apocalypse happened? I think that's a mental thing. Like I think, and I don't know what it is. I don't know the mental thing for that, but I think that's certainly a thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes this is funny because I'll have those like a thought like that, and I was thinking about this one point of I was like, let's say that Walking Dead went real world or Red Dawn went real world. I think that my current social standing and social value would skyrocket. Yeah. So there's a part of me that's like, I was thinking about this. I was thinking like, is it appealing to me because in that world, I see myself successful and like see myself as like a strong leader or like, someone who can deal with all this stuff. And so like, the fact that like, whatever, I can tie all these crazy knots and like make a fire out of anything. That doesn't matter in where I live right in my everyday life, but all of a sudden I could become very valuable. And I wonder if that's a piece of that too. Cause I was watching a TV show the other day it was just a a war movie or a war TV show, and these guys were in a forward operating base, and it was sandy and hot and crappy, and like some of their friends had just died, and like it's a crappy situation. And I had this thought too, where I was thinking to myself, I was like, on the couch, I was like, man, I just wish I was there right now. Wish I was there doing that right now. And if I was there doing that right now, I would be wishing I was on the couch watching Netflix with a beer right then too. It's like, that's like, it's funny that that's how I was thinking of that. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I definitely like go back and forth between that mindset as well of like, I'm working my job that's really cushy, right? Work from home. And at the same time, I have these other skills that are absolutely useless to the professional world of what I do, right? Like, I'm working with machine learning AI, but I really love my skills that I have in like, you know, survival, bushcraft survival, or like firearm proficiency, whatever it is. And there's a part of me that wishes that would become valuable to the people around me.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I've got one of my friends, he's just always like, he's like, if it happens, I'm coming to your house. Cause I know we're good. He's like, cause the world we live in here suits him very well. Mm-hmm. He's doing fine in this world. And in that world, he's like, I need you in that other world.
Yeah. And to our kin who are out there listening to, we plan on having, you know, we've mentioned it before, but we plan on having quite a few segments where we interview people whose career was using these skills, you know, whether that was in, you know, tier 1 operations in the military, or, you know, honestly, like being a paramedic, being law enforcement. And I kind of want to ask them too, you know, like, what is their, you know, psychology around that? You know, like, do those people ever fantasize about the opposite of like having that cushy work from home from job, mm-hmm. that, you know, they would trade that time in the service or being a paramedic, being a frontline, like, you know, public servant, to, you know, kind of trade that trauma that comes along with that job to have that kind of more boring, cushy job. Or, you know, I think that's why, like, we see like a lot of people find like therapy, you know, in being a farmer or being a rancher post being a, you know, someone who was in war.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably find that it's a, like, for the most part, a grass is greener mentality.
Oh yeah,
there'll be always folks who are like, I just love what I do and I never trade it. There'll also be, there's like grass is greener syndrome for like a lot of folks, myself included.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, with that, like, I think we've covered a lot of interesting stuff. Got hopefully some people that can relate to us, but also that, you know, that we relate to you. And it's something that definitely we want to discuss more in depth in a focused series or something like that down the road. But I don't know, anything else that you can think of, Pat, that you want to kind of throw into this one before we wrap it up?
Yeah, you know, I think that moving forward, I'm just excited to get into a couple long-form series where we're discussing certain topics with folks and have some other voices get in on the conversation with us. And we are working on getting those people lined up and getting all that stuff in place so that we can start to explore all these topics deeper with professionals, with experts, and that we can continue to, we want to provide something that's entertaining, we want to provide something that's insightful, and we want to provide a space and a time where people want to feel like they come sit down with us for a little bit of their day.
Yeah, I definitely am looking forward to that. And I think, like, the word that I think of is, like, empathize, you know, like, I want people to be able to empathize with the guests we have on. But I also want our podcast to be, you know, our series to be something that our listeners feel like we empathize with them. And again, like anyone's welcome at the table. So if you have someone in mind, you know, if you're friends with someone who you think has that experience that they can offer, we'd love to kind of connect with them and see if they'd be willing to come in and sit down with us in person and have this conversation. Again, we're kind of still figuring out the format, and we're listening to you. You know, those of you who we're kind of sharing this stuff with, give us the feedback, and we're trying to help make this a polished but still homely feeling of you get to sit down and join with us in this kind of talk and conversation.
Yeah, I think we want to be genuine, authentic, not a lot of frills, and lots of people out there who have a story worth telling, and this could be a spot for people to share their stories, to help others with things that they've gone through or learned, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Well, with that, this is another episode of the Mick and Pat show, and we're still figuring out what our sign-off should be. So I guess in the format of our last one, don't get your dick stuck in a blender. Take care.
Amen. Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.